Good day, everyone. This is Dr. Hema Narayanan welcoming you all to this course on human resource development. This course is meant to be offered as a HR elective for the MBA students, and this course is split into 5 units, and these 5 units will be presented in 20 episodes. To begin with, the first episode will focus on what HRD means and how it evolved and the learning outcomes of this course. The expected learning outcomes of this course is developing critical knowledge and skill base to meet organizational requirements in changing times. The student should be able to identify the need and design and deliver HRD interventions wherever required in their workplace. To appreciate the nature of HRD, its origin, its history in terms of domestic, national and international perspectives. Develop corporate learning strategy as a part of planned organizational change. Integrate human resource development with various functional areas of human resource management compatible with business strategy. Analyze the approaches and interventions and come up with a new strategy which is relevant with the HRD and its impact on all categories of employees. So to begin our session, let us focus on what we know already. We have already studied a paper on a course on human resource management, so which is concerned with managing people working in the organization. But before that, we were not having the term human resource management uh, before. We called it as personnel management. Now, so to put things in perspective, is there a difference between human resource management and personnel management? Some say there is and some say there's not. Now let me give you an example. Sandeep works for a company in personnel management department. We know it's an administrative function of an organization that exists to provide workforce required for carrying out the organizational activities. So let us see how Sandeep did. Sandeep engages in planning. He does job analysis to determine the organization's current and future labor needs. He recruits employees with knowledge, skills and abilities that the organization needs. He develops a healthy workplace. He ensures that the workplace is safe and healthy, and he complies with all the health and safety regulations which are darted out by the governments. He also develops a compensation system. He develops policies that ensure that his organization complies with the state's employment laws. And finally, Sandeep and the personnel department are the primary intermediaries between the employees and the organization. They manage many aspects of employee-employer relationship, importantly handling employee grievances. Now we have another character, Miss Pavitra. She works in a human resource management department. It involves the management of people in an organization. The job of any human resource manager is to ensure that the organization has the human capital it needs to accomplish its goals. So, what is human capital? It's a fancy way of describing employees with certain set of knowledge, skills, and abilities, which can be used by the organization in a productive manner. Now, let's take a quick look at what Pavitra and other people in human resource management department do. Pavitra ensures that the company is appropriately staffed, which includes job analysis, planning, recruiting, and selection. Pavitra and her fellow resource managers also develop training and education programs to keep employees up to date on the skills and knowledge they require. Human resource management develops compensation plans just like personnel management. Pavitra makes sure that the company maintains a safe and healthy work environment. She develops personnel policies that ensure compliance with various employment and labor laws. Employee relations is another key responsibility of Pavitra and her team. If employees have general questions or concerns about the organization, they can go to Pavitra and get it clarified. Now tell me, don't you think Sandeep and Pavitra do the same kind of job? But Sandeep is called the personnel manager, while Pavitra's designation is that of a human resource manager. Personnel management primarily focuses on ordinary activities such as employee hiring, remunerating, training, and maintenance of harmony in the organization. On the contrary, human resource management focuses on treating employees as valued assets which are to be valued, used, and also preserved. The primary function of personnel management is divided into two categories: operative functions and managerial functions. The operating functions consist of activities which are concerned with procurement, development, compensation, evaluation, employee welfare, utilization, maintenance, and collective bargaining. Managerial function, on the other hand, is all about planning, organizing, directing, motivation, control, and coordination, which are the basic managerial activities performed in personnel management. Human resource management is a specialized, organized branch of management, and it is concerned with acquisition, maintenance, development, utilization, and coordination of people at work in such a manner that they give their best to the enterprise. So, it is a systematic action or function of planning for the human resource needs and demands, selection, training, compensation, employee appraisal, all that is required to meet those requirements. So, in short or in a nutshell, you can say HRM covers a broad spectrum of activities which includes employment, recruitment and selection. What is recruitment? Searching for the best or making the best candidate to apply for the job. Selection is the sieving process where you select the best hands to work in your organization. Training and development, employee services, salary and wages, industrial relations, health and safety, education, working conditions, appraisal and assessment, and so on. While personnel management treats workers as tools or machines, human resource management treats the employee as an important asset of the organization. This is the basic criteria which distinguishes the term human resource management from personnel management. Now, these are the basics, and we would have already studied that. This is just a brushing up of things so that you get things right. And now, moving on to the distinction between human resource management and human resource development. HRM stands for Human Resource Management. It refers to the art of managing all aspects of human workforce in a company or organization. It aims at providing an optimal environment for the employees to work in and fully and freely utilize their skills to their best so that they are able to achieve the company's intended outcome. As human beings, or actually as human resource management usually applies to big companies and organizations, it has subcategories, one of which is human resource development, the name of a course. This is a component of human resource management that focuses on nurturing employee skills. Because the process of hiring new employees can be long, expensive, and cumbersome, most companies employ the strategy of HRD to promote the longevity of the employees within the company. Because through this process of human resource development, they seek to progressively scale up the managerial ladder. Now that we have understood that human resource development is an important component of human resource management, we are now moving on to find out what is the purpose of a separate human resource development department when there is a human resource management department. In bigger companies, is it possible that the human resource development functions are also taken care of by the human resource manager? Definitely not. So, there has been an ongoing research in this field. It has emanated as a practice, and the best practices have given rise to a discipline, and this discipline is comparatively very young, as already told. So, according to Hamlin and Stewart, 2011 identified four core purposes of HRD, four important purposes of HRD. According to them, the purpose of HRD is to improve individual and group effectiveness. It's not focused only on the individual's growth, or it is not focused only on the group's effectiveness. To improve organizational effectiveness and performance. So now here we have to differentiate between efficiency and effectiveness. Efficiency is doing the right things, and effectiveness is doing things right. Now that we have understood that human resource development is a part or important component of human resource management, let us seek to understand, seek the purpose of human resource development. Hamlin and Stewart in 2011 identified four core purposes of HRD to improve individual and group effectiveness. It is not focused on individual effectiveness alone. Now, there is a need to understand what effectiveness means. Effectiveness is doing the right things. Efficiency is doing things right. So, if I am having the right direction and my goal is right, then I say I am effective. I may be efficient, I may be skillful in doing a particular thing, but it may not serve the purpose if I have the wrong direction. For example, if I am to teach human resource development for a 6th standard student, I may be efficient, I may explain things in a nutshell, but that may not serve the purpose, because a lot of basic understanding about the human resource concepts is required, and only if I deliver to the student who has already done a course on human resource management, they will be able to appreciate it better. So my lecture can be effective only when it is delivered to the correct audience. So if my goal is right, if my what selection of audience is right, then I say my lecture is effective. So if it can produce some positive productive results, then the particular effort becomes effective. So now we'll move on to the next purpose. The first purpose listed out is improving the individual and group effectiveness, to improve organizational effectiveness and performance. So, Hamlin and Stewart view organizational effectiveness and performance as a resultant of individual and group effectiveness. So, their first purpose is to develop the individuals in the organization and the groups in the organization, and they elaborate that this can lead to the organizational effectiveness and performance. To develop knowledge, skills, and competencies. So, we've all come across these words in so many arenas, but it is very difficult to define and get a clarity among these words. Knowledge is a familiarity, awareness, or understanding about someone or something. It may be factual knowledge, it may be a procedural knowledge, how to do a particular thing, or the objective knowledge or object based knowledge, which is an acquaintance knowledge. You would have seen the object, but you do not know what it is, but you know what it is. You have seen that, so you know that. So that is called as acquaintance knowledge. So knowledge may be factual knowledge, procedural knowledge, which is nothing but skill, and objects or acquaintance knowledge, where you just know this is an object and you have seen the object, you do not know how it works or you do not know about it in detail. The knowledge thus can refer to a theoretical or practical understanding of a subject. Coming to the concept of skills, it is specific learned activities and they range widely in terms of complexity. Say for example, mopping the floor or performing a complex operation, surgery can be classified as a skill. Knowing which skill a person possesses helps us determine whether the training and experience is up to the mark and they are ready to be placed in a particular workplace activity. So we can say skill gives us the what a person possesses. They tell us about the types of abilities a person needs to perform a specific activity or job. And coming to the third one, competencies. Competencies are the skills incorporated into on the job behaviors. So you have a particular skill, but if you are not able to incorporate into a workplace behavior, then the competency is nullified. So those behaviors that demonstrate the ability to perform the job requirements competently is called as competencies. So you can, in an equation format, you can say competencies is the summation of skills, knowledge and abilities. So the purpose of human resource development according to Hamlin and Stewart is to develop knowledge, skill and competencies among the employees to enhance human potential and personal growth. What is potential? Potential are latent qualities or abilities which is not visible now. So it's not actually very open now, but they may be developed and lead to future success or usefulness. So the core guiding value of human resource development is that of flourishing human beings, and this should be embedded as professional responsibility of HRD professionals. So the HRD the authors of and the researchers in the field of human resource development have proposed that human resource development is basically about making the people flourish in terms of skills, abilities and competencies, and help them to develop personally uh, in a group, and thus increase the organizational effectiveness also. So now let us trace when this word was coined. Human resource development, the term was coined by Leonard Nadler in 1970 in his book Developing Human Resources. This term was used by Dr. Uday Parikh and Dr. T.V. Rao, the professors from India, around the same time, and they were consulting for giving consultation for various corporate giants at that period of time. So how this if you took a look into the formation of this word human resource development, human resource refers to the talents and energies of people in an organization contributing to the realization of organization's mission, vision, values and goals. And development, it is a process of active learning from experience. This leads to systematic and purposeful development of the whole person, body, mind and spirit. So our job as HRD professionals will be to energize the people in the organization and help them to make the best use of their resources, to upgrade the organization, to develop the organization and also for their wholesome development. So thus you can say HRD is the integrated use of training, organizational and career development efforts, which is to improve the individual, group and organizational effectiveness. So a famous definition of human resource development by American Society for Training and Development is that it is the process of increasing the capacity of human resource through development. So now let us have a look into the evolution of the field of human resource development, how this concept of human resource development evolved. The practice of the profession is the day-to-day set of learning and related activities that are conducted in any one organization setting. These practices periodically are thoughtfully analyzed, and what seems to be effective in a variety of settings becomes the best practice. These best practices are then presented in professional associations or conferences or in journals and are provided by consultants to the organizations. Professionals go to local professional association meetings to learn the best practice, and some enroll in graduation certificates or certificate programs to become more competent, more knowledgeable, and more professional. So, this applied research conducted by consultants lead to the best practice in the field, and the empirical research on the issues and problems in the field leads us to unearth more vistas of knowledge in the field. So the study of this scholarly knowledge within a certain domain is known as a discipline. So that is why we call that human resource development is an emanating discipline. So to sum up, you can say the discipline of HRD involves the study of how people and organizations learn and change. The profession of HRD is about the roles and competencies which enhance learning, human potential, and high performance, which we call as the best practices. The practice of HRD involves the activities that encompass workplace learning, the day-to-day practice which is happening in the organizations. The first major analysis of the emerging profession appeared in an article by Lippitt and Nadler in 1967. The authors identified 3 roles of the training director which emerged in practice. The earlier formal trainings which were conducted during World War II by teachers who had been recruited out of their classrooms and technical specialists from industry to be instructors to the unskilled workforce. The first training methodology was developed during these years. Instruction training, showing, telling, doing, and checking, all these processes involved in this training. So the American Society for Training Directors, which was later renamed as American Society for Training Development, was established in 1945. So just from a primitive aspect wherein people were trained by their own ancestors, by their own senior generations, slowly apprenticeship method came into being. So until 19th century, a great majority of people, even those from the progressive nations, received no formal schooling. So what education they acquired was through some form of apprenticeship. So this also included professions such as law and medicine, where skill and competency was required. Apprenticeship is characterized as a system for preparing the young to become expert workers. Davis identified 3 stages of apprenticeship: apprentice, journeyman, and master. So one began a training to get trained as an apprentice for a period of about 7 years under the direction of a master, one who had achieved the highest level of expertise at a particular vocation. So this was called as a vocational training through apprenticeship method. The master was expected to provide not only occupational training to the apprentice, but also with some moral, religious, and civic instruction that he would give to his own child. Then the second stage, as a journeyman who had achieved the basic skills and understandings of the craft, one could begin working as a day laborer, starting to earn a fixed wage. After another period of several years developing his skills as a journeyman, one may have mastered the competencies expected of the craft, and after demonstrating a skill to achieve the level of master, the master craftsman could set up his own business and take on apprentices and provide instruction in the vocation. So this was how the people were trained in before the 19th century. Well, before the onset of the industrial era in the later part of 19th century, the system of apprenticeship training that had served the nation so well in earlier times was showing signs of weakness. Even before the appearance of factories, the close interaction between master and apprentice was eroding because apprenticeship was becoming more entrepreneurial than and less pedagogical. Pedagogy means the science of teaching, the methodology of teaching. So the decline of apprenticeship became quite pronounced as the industrial advances of the later 19th century created demand for workers trained in a different way. So when mechanization came into being, a lot of machines were introduced. This old method of apprenticeship training could not be and vocational training could not be continued. So factory schools or corporation schools, as it was otherwise called, started providing technical training in the skills and trades required in the industry, and instructions in mathematics, mechanical, freehand drawing and other practical skills needed by the workers were also trained. The early 1900 marked a clear drift toward the idea that other entities would need to offer work related training. So corporation schools were sponsored as early as in 1905 and ensured that their employees were equipped with the skills necessary to perform the operations in the workplace. A parallel development was the increasing importance of vocational training and schools. So with the onset of the 20th century, vocational training had become increasingly extensive and professional associations were founded to promote vocational education consciousness. Dooley, Dietz, Allen and Caney, along with Glenn Gardiner and Bill Conover, used their wartime experiences to fundamentally shape the history of training when the Manpower Commission established training within industry service during the Second World War. So before the onset of World War II and during the World War II, these people actually started what was called as the training within industry, which is a very famous, which is an important milestone in the history of human resource development. This training within industry, shortly termed as TWI, is known for its simple and elegant way of training incredible amounts of people. Each program had a system to support it: limited steps, keywords, subpoints, documentation of work methods, and supporting training so as to obtain certification. The programs had fostered three key contemporary elements of HRD: performance, quality, and human relations. The primary measure of success of this TWI, training within industry, was whether the program helped production, efficiency, and cost effectiveness. In the training within industry, Job Instruction Training Program, JIT for short, was created for first and second line supervisors who would train most employees. So the focus of the program was to teach the supervisors to break down the jobs into steps and giving instruction to the employees using a derivative of the 4-step process introduced during World War I. Training within industry also pioneered the attending or addressing the quality issues impeding performance. Two programs are notable in that. The first one is the Job Methods Training Program, JMT for short, which provided a specific method of teaching employees to address production and quality problems constructively. So, encouragement was given to the employees to question the details of job breakdowns and develop and apply new methods that work better by themselves. The second, training within industry, partnered with General Motors in 1942 to create the program development method, PDM for short, which is a four-step process designed to teach employees to address quality problems and implement improvements. The four steps were as follows: spotting a production problem, developing a specific plan of action, getting the plan into action, and checking the results. This 1942 method is strikingly similar to the plan, do, study, check, act cycle by Edward Deming, which was introduced in Japan during the 1950s and in America 30 years later than that. And the core quality principles introduced by TWI still provide a basis for which many in HRD implement their analysis and work. The TWI technique was the first to address the human relations issues as well. The job relations training program trained supervisors to establish good relationship with the employees. JRT laid important groundwork for the burgeoning of organization development in the companies during the 1950s. From 1940 to 1950, the primary way to think about an organized work environment was based on the human relations model. The human relations model attempted to move away from the classical assumptions of traditional and bureaucratic organizations, and it focused mainly on individual identities, their needs, and facilitating stronger interpersonal relationships. Leaders of human relations school of thought included Chester Bernard, Mary Parker Foley, and Frederick Roethlisberger and Elton Mayo. Elton Mayo, he is very famous for the Hawthorne experiments. Leaders of humanism included Carl Rogers, who pioneered client-centered consulting; Abraham Maslow, famous for the needs hierarchy theory; Cyril Hole and Malcolm Nolle, who focused on adult learners; and Douglas MacGregor, who developed the theory X and Y leaders. These men each added to new assumptions of management thought, which were as follows: work is meaningful, workers are motivated by meaningful, mutually set goals and participation, workers should be increasingly self-directed, and this self-control improves the efficiency and work satisfaction. Managers are most effective when working to develop untapped potential and creating an environment where potential can be fully utilized. These assumptions are still the guideposts of current thinking in organizational development and HRD. Laboratory training, or the T group, provided an early emphasis on group process and interactions. T groups were unstructured small group sessions in which participants shared experiences and learned from mutual interactions. The first recorded T group implementation took place in 1946 under the direction of the leaders such as Kurt Lewin, who is famous for the organizational change model, Kenneth Benn, Leland Bradford, and Ronald Lippitt. T groups were first used in the industry in 1953 and 1954 when Douglas MacGregor and Richard Beckard took T groups out of the context of individual development and applied them within the context of an organization. Thus, the employee needs moving beyond the classroom, matching the employee knowledge and skill base which is required by the organizations, career development and organization development led to the emergence of HRD. Thus, to sum up the evolution of HRD, the early part of the century saw a concern for improved efficiency through careful work design, and training and development started getting more emphasis. And in the middle part of the century, emphasis shifted to the availability of managerial personnel and employee productivity through training and development programs again. Recent decades have focused on the demand for technical personnel, responses to new legislation and governmental regulations, increased concern for quality of work life, total quality management, and a renewed emphasis on productivity and the overall development of the workforce. That leads to organizational effectiveness. And thus, there is an emergence of discipline of HRD in the recent years. and HRD is still a growing field. Lot of researchers and lot of focus areas are thriving. And to sum up the contents of this episode, we first discussed the course outcomes, the expected course outcomes of this course, and secondly we differentiated human resource management from personnel management, and we distinguished between human resource management and human resource development. Then we traced the origin of the word term HRD, Human Resource Development, by Leonard Nadler in 1970 and by Uday Parikh and Dr. T.V. Rao in India. And we traced the evolution of the concept of HRD over the years, starting from the apprenticeship method and slowly progressing towards vocational schools, training schools, then corporation schools and laboratory training, and last but not the least, the training within industry. So the reason for the impetus given to the HRD concept in the recent years. And that's all for today. We'll again meet with the next episode on the evolution of HRD in India and the levels of HRD interventions. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.